Welcome back to the Mid-Year Mitch YouTube channel. In today's episode, we're jumping back into the Centerfield 65 Corvette. We're going to install the front end, and I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to install your C2 Corvette front end, so be sure to stick around. In one of my last videos you saw, I got the body on the chassis with my new lift rig, and now it's time to get the front end fitting. I just literally set it in place because I got some powder-coated parts for the Camaro back there I needed to make room for. So I want to work in this video on getting this front end to fit. I want to get the inner fenders glued in. I want to prep the surface a little better on the inside because there's some globs of resin. I want to clean all this up and I want to make it look like the firewall before we glue it on. I let the inner fenders cure up overnight and that turned out really nice. I got a little sloppy with my glue in a couple areas, but I'll sand that off, no problem. But they glued in fine, so now we should be good to get what little bit of glue I have on the inner fenders. We'll get that removed, scuff it, and I'm going to shoot some filler primer on both the inner fenders and everywhere that gets painted. I'll let that cure up overnight, and then tomorrow I'll start painting the inner fenders. But I also need to start working on removing some of this excess glue. I need to start fitting the front end to the car. So I have the front end sitting on here. A lot of people ask me how I get these to fit, but you just kind of have to follow a similar process that you do with the quarter panels. You just slowly whittle stuff away. Like I need to remove some in the door jamb here to get the front end to go back. This front end won't, there's some hard resistance right here in this area, and then there's a piece that goes right through here that I can tell it's hitting that won't really let this lay down, so I need to do some trimming in there, may have to do some cutting. If you're using a hand-laid front end, there could be areas that are really thick, where a press molded should have a little more consistency in the thickness. You may have to make some modifications as you go, and the same on this side, just need to do some trimming. So I have the front end off, and I showed you I had some interferences in this area. Well, there's a separate bonding strip that bonds right onto the firewall right here. So what I did is I removed it, I heated it up. A little too hot right here, but I heated it up so that way I can come in here and I'm going to take out probably 1/4 inch of this flange right here, and then I'll take some off the bottom of this, and that'll allow me to channel this bonding strip down enough so hopefully we won't have any interference. So I flipped the car around so I could take advantage of having the beam up above, and I'm using both of my chain hoists to work as a one-man front end installer. So I've been manipulating the driver's side to get this to fit pretty well. I don't have the hinge pillars in here, so that's gonna change our fit up. But I first wanted to do a first dry run, make sure we can get our body line across the side, work on our door gap, and start to whittle this excess away. It still needs to be trimmed up a little bit, but it's getting close. So on the passenger side, it's a little bit different story. I'm still working on trying to get that door to fit, but right now, well, we're hitting something. So if you look inside the door jamb, I don't have the hinge pillar in here, which is convenient because if I shine the flashlight in here, you can see exactly what we're hitting on the firewall. We're hitting that front, or that side piece of the bonding strip. So what I need to do is pull the front end back off and trim that down, so that way the front end can sit down lower here on top. That will help this top part wrap, and that will also help line up our side body line. I removed the bonding adhesive and all the extra fiberglass from the mounting flange for the front end. And I also cleaned up underneath here where this mounts to the rocker. And this hinge pillar was already cut up. Somebody must have harvested this chunk of it at one point. So I had a scrap, which was actually from the Field Find split. So I cut that piece off, grafted it in here, and I glued it to the metal backing plate here for where your rivets go for your dash frame. I glued that in place and I got a little impatient, so went ahead and speeded up the process. So that kicked pretty good. So now I'm gonna fiberglass this before I get it on the car. I'll fiberglass the backside and the top here. Make sure all this is free and clear so we can slide our hinge pillar in place. So I have the front end back on after I put the fiberglass hinge pillars in place. And actually, the passenger side fits better than the driver's side now. So they kind of flip-flopped. I still have some trimming to do in this department. And you can see we have a low spot here where the front end needs to come out. So I'm gonna have to pull the front end off and build this area from about here to about here up to get that to puff out a little bit. And I'm using the gill to pull the whole front end down between the gill and the rocker channel of the bird cage. That's kind of pulling it down, not with a lot of pressure that it's flexing anything, but it's just pulling it down tight. So if we get this gap uniform, hopefully we just need one clamp along the side just to pull that down, and then we'll put a couple around the top. But overall, this is looking pretty good. The body line lines up here, and the height here is pretty good. We'll get it a little bit closer once we build that up. Now the driver's side isn't bad. It was certainly better before, but right now there's an interference somewhere in here. I got to chase it down. You can see it's high right here, and the body line shows it's a little high as well. And also, for some reason, now that the hinge pillars in the door is way too far back, so I have to figure out why the door isn't sliding forward more. So I'll get the door adjusted properly and then figure out this. So it's going to be a little bit of a dance, and I still have some more trimming to do here. So we'll start to whittle this stuff away, and it's getting closer though. It's just gonna take some time. So I'm doing the final fit of the front end on the car, and I'm really happy with the way it's fitting up. So the body line lines up really nice on the door. I had to do some filler work in here and sand that down. And well, now the fixture's kind of in the way, but overall there's a really nice gap the whole way around here. The contour lines up perfectly. It's kind of the same story on this side. This one required a little more force, so I have some extra weight on my jig because the more you push, the more it picks this thing up. So I'm probably gonna get some brake rotors and stack them on this. And it just needs a couple clamps up top. Same story down the side. Body line looks good. It's all in the same plane. So I think this thing is pretty much ready to glue in place. So my dad and I got the front end installed on Centerfield, and it turned out awesome. Just put the glue on all the exposed seams, and then I mocked up all the clamps ahead of time, and I put marks so I knew exactly where to put them once the front end was on. So we flexed the front end on, got it installed. The gaps turned out really nice, so I'm gonna let this cure up over the weekend. And the passenger side also turned out nice. So we have a good body line across the top and across here. There's a lot of different planes here that you have to work on getting, but putting the clamp in the gill definitely is the key to get it to fit properly. So once this cures up, I'll work on cutting this opening out for the windshield wiper, and then I'll graft in the center piece here, work on getting the core support in, and do some finished body work on it. And I also have to glue the top of the inner fenders to the fender. I'll work on getting the hood fit on this. So hopefully the next time and the next video, we'll be able to finish up the body of this thing and then just focus on mechanical stuff. So that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I have a lot of work to do. So I'll catch you guys later.